community engagement meetings, and that leads to the second kind of input we get, and that's from the things that Dan's going to talk about, the various kinds of meetings and processes that we use to involve the community, to engage the community, to get them to thinking about education and where they want their school district to go. And so let me turn it over to Dan, and he's going to take it from there. Clicker and the thing. Which way here?
I got to watch my time real carefully because Kevin's going to shoot me if we go over. He told us that. Not quite that direct, but it was almost that direct. So we're going to try to move as quickly as we can with a lot of material to cover. Three major overriding factors that must be in place for successful community engagement and long-range planning in our view. These are on up here. It involves a large number of people. Rod talked about in Hazelwood as an example that, for instance, at our first meeting there were 500-600 folks there. That continued throughout for the period of time that the program, for the duration of the program. There must be good, solid, two-way communication. We have to talk to each other. And we will create meetings that, that require the community to do that. It's important for the school district to say some things to the community. It's important for the community to say some things to the school district. It's important for the community to say things to the community, to each other. So what we put together are situations where you have to talk to each other about significant items that need to be addressed to move the district forward, and obviously the ongoing two-way communication. Some other things that need to be in place for successful community engagement. Internal support. It will not be successful if the Board of Education is not truly behind a program like this, if the leadership of the school district is not truly behind a program like this. So that's really important, and there needs to be that internal acceptance, and hopefully more than acceptance, but enthusiasm for moving the district forward and for getting behind a program like this. A clear charge. We'll work with the Board of Education to create a charge for the program, which includes a direction, expectations for the program once it is completed, as well as parameters. Citizen leadership. It's really, really important for us, and we work really hard with as we work with the school district and district leadership to identify the right, the appropriate citizen leadership, so that the board and administration can kind of take a little bit of a back seat, let the citizens lead out and be the folks in front of this process. I'm not saying that you abdicate your responsibility as a board or as administration. That's obviously not the case, and we realize the importance of that. But it is important that there be citizen leadership. More than the usual suspects. It's more than putting together 25, 30 folks that do the planning and then hand it off to somebody, and often that's what happens. You get the president of the Chamber of Commerce and the president of Rotary and the president of this and the chairman of that, and you put them together with a few district folks and they do a plan. That's not what we do. It's going to involve a lot of folks, Joe average folks like you and I, that are going to be involved in the process. It's totally open. I mentioned two-way communication being important. A comprehensive timeline. Obviously, strategic and or long-range planning is perpetual. You always, good districts are doing that all the time, but there need to be phases to it, and so there will be a beginning and an end to the various phases. Rod talked about Hazelwood, and we're in the third phase of actual doing planning there. It will be data and information driven. When we come together, there will be specific topics, and I'll show you some samples of that in a minute. Specific topics, issues, areas that need to be addressed, that you as a community know that need to be addressed. That is the leadership of the district realize need to be addressed, processed some way in order to move the district forward. And so that's what we're going to talk about, not just what our whims are, but it'll be based upon data and information and test scores and enrollment and all of that data that, that we need to bring to the forefront for all of us to talk about. Other items needs to be well planned in terms of the workshops, and really that's what we're talking about, community workshops over a period of time. Do this in small groups, and I'll show how that works in just a minute, because I know that this evening Kevin wanted us to really talk about process, and that's what we're trying to focus on. Tremendous documentation, and I'll show you samples of that, or an outline of that as we go along. This is the diagram, the chart, the process that we would follow for your school district. Obviously, it may get customized, modified, adjusted so that it fits for you, but generally speaking, this is the frame that we would issue. You see there in the upper left that we start with the charts that I talked about. We'll put together a facilitating team. Let me stress that it's a facilitating team. It's not a planning team. This team will not determine what the strategies are. It will not determine what the recommendations are. The larger community will do that. We use the word facilitating team here. It's about 15 folks or so. Because that's what it is. This team facilitates the process. It's the community that actually makes decisions. This group facilitates it. I'll talk about membership on that in just a minute. And then the primary piece of that is what we refer to as the CES, or Community Engagement Sessions. And you're going to see a sample of a timeline for that in a few minutes. But this can't happen hurriedly. Several months are suggested because it's important that as we look at each topic, it's a chapter of a book. We'll write another chapter, look at another chapter, look at another chapter before we come to the conclusion. And those chapters might be what's suggested there in the sample topics. We look at student performance, finance, facilities, technology, and those are just sample. We'll look at the topics that you think we need to look at as a school district in order to move this district forward, and we'll look at it, as I mentioned, based upon the data and key information that we need to process. A series of meetings over time, generally monthly meetings, and I'll show you samples of what that looks like in just a minute. Sometimes we'll also hold, if it's a large district and if the facilitating team determines that it's appropriate, we might even hold some building level meetings that will involve additional folks who might not be able to come to the larger community-wide meetings. And when we get finished, we're going to develop, through the process of consensus, what will be recommendations or key strategies for the district to address in terms of moving forward. The chart. Now let me look at some detail in that chart. I've talked about the board charts and say that we give you several samples of what other districts have done so that you have a feel for that. We will actually work with the Board of Education to develop what that charge is. And then when we begin the process with the community engagement sessions, we all know that we're beginning on the same page. And that's really important. That's the whole purpose of the charge. The facilitating team, that group of 12 to 15 people that I mentioned, these are the kind of folks that we want on that team. And we're going to work with them a lot. 3 or 4 meetings before we ever hold a community engagement session. And then a facilitating team happens in between each of the larger community engagement sessions to make sure that we're moving along the way we should, make sure that we're facilitating that process so that it happens the way it ought to happen. So you see at the top, remember I said citizen leadership is really important? That's right at the top, community chairs for the process. And it's the community chairs who are lead out and moderators and facilitators of the larger community engagement session. The internal coordinator, just somebody that we can work with